All right, we're going to start writing down our clearances for these valve springs and clearances up here. First one I always like to check is the installed height. You're just going to measure from the bottom collar to the top collar. I really don't have the right tool to do this, so I'm just using my vernier calipers and it'll be close. So this one here, I'm going to measure from the very bottom of the bottom collar to the bottom of the top collar. And we're at 1.8, or actually 1.810 is what I had originally. I measured them a couple of times. So that's going to be our installed height, 1.810. You're going to write that down for each cylinder. Take that out of there. And that's going to be where your springs are going to sit as far as setting up your spring poundages. Like I said, you're going to go coil bind, which I'll do here in a couple minutes. You'll measure the coil bind, but that's here in a little bit. And you're going to check this one here, which is just from, you can do it with the seal on there. Just pop one of the old seals on. You're going to measure from the bottom of the top collar, or basically right here where the keeper's sitting there. You're going to measure to that. So let me see if I can zoom this thing in a little bit so you can actually see it. So that's our top collar on there and the valve seal. And we're just going to measure from the lip of the seal up to the bottom of the top collar. So right there, we're at basically 610 thousandths, which is good. So we don't actually have to cut these guides at all. We might, no, I'm probably not going to cut them. That's a lot of clearance. So what you're talking about here is you have that clearance, so the valve's going to open. And we know it's only a 490 lift cam, 490 lift valve at the valve, lifted the valve. So it's going to go down 490 thousandths, meaning you got 610 thousandths. You still got 110 thousandths clearance before that top collar smacked the valve seal or the top of the guide, which is bad because if it hits it, sometimes it will just smash the seal. Other times you can break the valve guide at the top. So you're going to do that for each cylinder and write them down. Pop these off here and write down all your stem protrusions, well, yeah, you need to write your stem protrusions down too. Stem protrusions with no collar on there, that's just to the pocket of the valve spring seat pad to the top of the valve. And you're going to write those down. And as far as writing this stuff down, you want to keep a log of it. I keep mine in a little notebook, not on a scrap of paper like I have here. I've got a notebook with everything I do motor-wise for each bike, and I'll put a stamping on cylinder heads, usually right over here around the intake pad, and it'll have a code that I make up, and write that down with each motor that I set up. So it gives me all the cylinder head info, the cylinder piston to wall clearance, deck height, whether I use what base gaskets or head gaskets I use as far as thickness, what my valve spring poundages are, coil bind. You know, if I had to shim if I put a shim in here under the lower collar to up the spring pressure a little bit, or what my spring poundages were, valve guide clearance, ring clearance, ring land clearance, groove clearance for the rings, not just the end gap, but the ring land groove clearance, the ring depth in the piston, as far as how far down the ring sets in the groove, all that stuff. Ignition timing, jetting, anything I do in there, it gets written in there. You know, what intermediate jet I'm using in the carburetor, what main jet, where I have the needle set, if I shim the needle any. Ignition timing, we'll have to have the ignition timing set up, rev limit, whatever. It all goes in the motor log. I've got stacks of motor logs from, since the 80s. And the reason for the stamping is every set of heads I do gets stamped, because I have had people pull this crap where they go, well, you know, they'll say things like, you did these heads for me. And they'll bring me a set of heads that are chewed up or whatever, and there ain't no stamping on them. So I know I didn't do them. Or where they've taken heads off and taken it somewhere else and somebody else has done something and bring it back, and I can check it. I know what springs I put in there, what kind of springs, red stock springs or S&S springs or comp cam springs or whoever's valve springs or whoever's valves. If I use stock valves, I write in there I use stock valves. If I use Freya valves, I use Freya valves. Manley, Kid White, whoever's valves I use, what pistons I put in there, what kind of rings I used. Just anything and everything goes in the motor log. Okay, that's enough of that. I'm going to go check these springs out and see what they're coil binding at. Alright, you're going to have to forgive the mess in here, but it is what it is. So I'm just going to pop a spring in this dirty old vise here. And it's really a crude procedure. Be nice if I still had a Rymax spring tester, but that's a long time ago. So we're just going to pop this spring down until it coils binds. Really got to do something about the lighting in here. It feels like it's coil bound to me. And we're just going to measure from We're just going to do it like this. All right, we got 1.590. That's the overall length from the outside collar to the outside of the top collar. And then we just need to do a little math. So I'm going to have to subtract the thickness of the bottom collar and then the thickness of the top collar. All right, I got 50 thousandths for the bottom collar thickness, and $115 thousandths for the top. Okay, that was my screw up on measuring here. That's what happens when you got cataracts. Right now I got 1.460. And we're going to leave that on there, and we're going to take our coil bind out. Give our coil bind clearance of about 80 thousandths. Actually, we got better than that. We're at what is that, 1.440, and we're going to go out at 60, 70, 80 thousandths. So that's our coil bind clearance. So we're at 1.520. We're going to keep going. We're going to go 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 thousandths. So I have to use my camera to focus on things here. So we're at 2 inches roughly 10 thousandths. So if you subtract 200 and about 265 off of that, because that's the thickness of the collars. That'll be our coil bind clearance. So we're pretty good on without having to shim them. Still don't know the poundages, but I'm not putting springs in it, so we should be good on all of those. It'd be nice to know the poundages, but I'm not dropping money for a spring tester. I used to have a nice Rimac or Rimac, however you say it, spring tester that I had for years. And when I got sick, I had to sell all that shit to pay medical bills, so I'm missing a lot of stuff that I used to have. Some stuff got cheaper, some stuff got a hell of a lot more expensive. But anyway, you get the idea. We're doing it like this, which is, it'd be better to know everything as far as poundages and an easier way to check this. But I don't have all the tools I used to have, so I'm just doing what I'm doing. I know how to do it, and that's it. So that's it for this session on cylinder heads, measuring stuff. Now I know what I need to do. When I get done porting it and setting the valves up and all that, I'll do another video on it, and we'll keep going from there. If you guys have any questions, comments, whatever, let me know. Thanks for subscribing. If you haven't already subscribed and you like my content, please go ahead and subscribe. I kind of was on here doing stuff and then didn't feel like doing it anymore, so I quit for about a year or two, doing other stuff. And back into it now. Anyway, thanks.